The man sitting next to me on the couch was actually used to sit on this side of the lecture hall. He was a participant, just like you guys, in the 2003 Academy in Cape Town. And since then, he's gone on to be kind of a big deal. In South Africa, he's probably one of the biggest DJs in South Africa, one of the biggest producers. It's hard to express right now just how big he is and how important he is within his scene, but we're going to get right into that story. So please help me welcome Black Coffee.
Thank you.
Yeah, so is it quite weird being on this side of the room?
Much, but I think it's such a good story. Not just for me, but for what Red Bull is doing. I think even for them taking that leap, going to South Africa 13 years ago, it was a big thing, I guess, because everyone is going there now, and they went there 13 years ago, and you know, to be here 13 years later, sitting on this side is quite an amazing story. Yeah.
You almost seem surprised that they would go to Cape Town. Like, why would that be a big deal for you?
Because the whole house music wave, the world has only woken up to it now. You know, not just house, just how musical South Africa as a country is. Everyone just woken up to it now, and it just shows how ahead they are. You know, of everything they do in the culture. So it is kind of special that they saw it quite early before everyone else.
Ahead of the curve kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Definitely. So you came, you went to the academy in Cape Town, but you didn't really have to go that far to come to the academy, did you? How, where exactly are you from in South Africa?
I was born in Durban. It's a 5-hour journey from Johannesburg. But I grew up, we moved when I was 8. I call it a village. You know, it's better now, but then that's what it looked like. In a place called the Eastern Cape, I was raised by my grandmother. I literally grew up milking cows. That's why I call it a village, even though not everyone had cows, but my grandmother did. And so that was my childhood. You know, I grew up quite a very hardworking, responsible kid. Yeah.
You described where you're from as a village. Could you describe what the village was like? Because I know South Africa has a long history of this kind of urban planning and how it involves race and place. Could you describe like where you're from and what kind of role that had for you growing up?
Durban is it's a township which was in South Africa, and the Eastern Cape at the time was an independent state, so it was not under the South African government, the government that is known for the apartheid regime. So it was a free state. Everything was slow. I grew up in a house with electricity and like a normal house with clean water, indoor bathroom, and moved to the Eastern Cape where it was none. You make fire if you want to cook. You make fire if you want to take a bath. The toilet is outside, and it's a bucket system toilet. You know, like I said, there was cows. I literally had to every morning and every afternoon go. And on holidays, I used to be a shepherd boy, literally look after cows. And so for me, it was quite a different lifestyle from what I was used to. Hence the village word, you know, as much as it was a township, so to say, because there were villages around, but my lifestyle, my home, that was the setup.
Why are there townships in South Africa? Like, what was their purpose, as it were?
The apartheid government created townships for black people to move them out of the city, to push them as far away as possible from where they were living. And they created a system that really worked for them. So if you work for a white person in South Africa, you wouldn't live with them. You would live in a township, and then you would travel. And they made sure that the township were as far away as possible from where they were staying, to avoid theft or any kind of uprising. They would have time to protect themselves if anything came up. So townships were a structure. They literally moved people out of places that were closer to where they lived, and created all these townships, identical houses, created schools for the black people to go to, and move them as far away as possible from Wall Street, but it went far because this is the only thing black people knew. You are born in the township, and everything around you is, there's nothing that is inspiring. Everyone is on the same level. Everyone is working for a master. It's either your grandfather or your father works in a mine, and your mother is a domestic worker, and no one aspires to be anything else. So everything in the township was meant for the township. They created certain brands for black people that were cheaper, clothing lines that were cheaper, food that was not so healthy but cheaper. It's a system they created for the black people.
They even had a brand of beer that's particular to townships. And I was when I was reading about your life, there was something that really struck me, because it's so beyond my understanding of the world. And they have like a slogan on the side of the beer can. Can you tell us what that was, and how it might have made you feel to see and read that?
They had different brands actually, and well packaged, and on the side it was written, "Do not drink and walk." It was meant for the people with a low income, people who didn't drive, and today it's "Do not drink and drive." And this was, even the name was an African name, even though it was not made by a black person. It was a very toxic beer, like in cartons, and you finish that carton, it finishes you. Very toxic, traditional, because we grew up knowing that it's a traditional beer, but in reality it was never traditional, because it is not really our tradition to drink that. So, but it was created in that manner that this is your beer. You work here, you live here, you drink this, and that's the circle. You grow up in that environment where even the people that you kind of like look up to are drinking this, and they are wearing this kind of clothes, and it becomes a system that captures you, and you see nothing beyond, and all you want to do, all you want to emulate is what you see in front of you, and you grow up in this environment and you become comfortable in it. And our biggest struggle till today is getting out of that system. It is the most imprisoning system to be in, because it's not just about walking out of it. People get comfortable to a point where they love it, and even when they do make it in life, they will spend most of their days living in the township, going to hangouts the same way people before them did, and eventually they end up back in the township because it's such a toxic place.
Is this the benefit of hindsight from having travelled other places, or were you quite aware of this when you were younger?
I was quite aware of it. It's quite weird. From an early age, I remember I mentioned earlier how I used to look after the cows when I wasn't at school and holidays, and I used to just sit there like the whole day and imagine this life. Traveling overseas, probably, not even knowing how to pronounce this place. And I had all these visions and dreams of wanting a better life, wanting to do something greater with my life, wanting to get out of that system, wanting to be the best, because it's such a rural area. It's that place where you clearly see stars, and if I saw a shooting star, I would speak and say, I want to be the best in whatever that I choose to be. Like literally, I would say that as a kid. And so it's a place I wanted to get out of at a very early age. It has always been, my dream. Like one day I need to leave this place and I need to get my family out of it. Yeah.
Apartheid in South Africa officially ended in 1994. Really, it was like between 91 and 94 was like the period of transition. It was like illegally ended in 91, and then non-white people were allowed to vote in elections in 1994. Correct?
Yeah.
In this system, how did you become a young man being aware of this system? What sort of feelings did you have, like growing up in something where you felt so unwelcome?
So growing up in the in the Eastern Cape, which was an independent state, as I mentioned, helped a lot because there was no segregation. There was no black, no white. We didn't have superior white people telling us what to do. It was literally run by black prime minister. All the business people were black. Everything was different. But Durban being my home, every holiday I would go to Durban. And half the time when I get there on holidays, all my cousins and my friends were not home because there was this state of emergency where police were just taking all the teenagers, and they would come at random hours, maybe 12, 1 o'clock at night. They just start knocking at doors and find you sleeping, and they were arresting all the black kids, basically, the boys mostly. And that's when I was aware. It never affected me direct because I was there on holiday, but that was the system we were living in. And I never really experienced any kind of direct apartheid myself until I was older. And until you saying it stopped, in 94, but maybe in like 2000, that's when I experienced it, But before, because of where I grew up in a different place where I was colorblind, But every time I would go to Durban, there was that fear, There was that fear of police. There was the fear of a white person, even today, if you were to sit an older gentleman, a black gentleman, and a white person on a table for dinner, you'd be shocked at the interaction, they would have, because it's still there. The older men are so afraid, of the white people. They see them as their bosses, and vice versa. The other one is more superior. They talk to them in a certain way. Only our generation and the ones after see things differently, But the depth of it is that it has affected a lot of us because we, like telling my grandmother I want to be a DJ one day and travel the world is like a joke. Like, that's not possible because she is not a driven person based on her past. Yeah, no one is really that ambitious because all they know is, listen, you need to be respectful. You need to listen to your master, basically, and that's if you want to become the best in what you do. Those are the two things you need to master, basically. No one tells you, go out there and seek something else and, chase a different dream. And so it has affected the way us interact with the world, interact with our women, interact with our kids, because there was no warmth from our fathers and our grandfathers. You know, we don't know the sense of family. We don't know it. It's something, my father passed 2-3 years ago. I've never received a hug from him because he doesn't know how to. He never received a hug from his father, you know. So we are at a point now where we're trying to approach the world in a different way, you know, and teach these things to the guys and talk about these things, because it has affected the way the whole country thinks. Yeah.
There was an event that actually shaped you as a young man in a way, and it happened on a very important day in South African history, which is the 11th of February 1990. Can you tell us what happened on that day?
My grandmother was quite strict. On the 10th of February, well, no, it happened on the 11th, yeah. So on the 10th of February, which was the eve when Nelson Mandela was coming out of jail, obviously the whole country was excited. There was jubilation everywhere, and there was celebrations everywhere. And so on the 10th, the night before, I think it was about 9-10 at night, a group of people were singing, you know, past my house, you know, and me and my cousins sort of like ran out to join, you know, but we knew how strict our grandmother was, so we wouldn't really go far, you know. But for some reason, everyone, they were like calling me, no, we need to go back home. I was like, no, I'm not going back home. So I stayed up, you know. I was 14, and basically we sang, ran around the streets the whole entire night until the early hours of the morning, which is around now on the 11th, around 3-4 o'clock in the morning. And we were, as a group, singing on the main road now, on our way to a big stadium. I think that's where the whole camping thing, because the idea was to celebrate and then go to a stadium and camp until the morning. Yeah. You know, camping meaning staying up and singing. So we were almost there, and you know, I just had these noises, you know, and screamings and quite strange noises. And a car literally drove into the crowd, and blink. A few seconds later, I woke up. I was on the floor, and there was chaos, basically. You know, everyone screaming, crying, and realized, okay, we had an accident. And about 36 people were injured, and one person passed away. I think that's the first person that was hit by the car, I assume. And then the chaos now was the people taking out the driver, and literally, you know, like they beat the guy up, they burnt his taxi, and they burnt him on the spot, you know. So I sustained an injury. And I don't think, when I look at it today, I mean, I don't think I was hit by the car myself. I just think it was a chain reaction. I think I was pushed, you know. So what happened, I sustained an injury called brachial plexus, which is the damage of the nerves on my shoulder. And at the time, I mean, I thought it's just a fracture, you know, on my arm. And the first thing I thought of was like, my grandmother's going to kill me. I'm not supposed to be here, you know. And someone was like, come, let's take you home. And on our way home, I'm thinking, no, we can't go home. She's really going to kill me. And we went back, because then there was cars taking people to the hospital, and they put me in one of the cars, and I was taken to hospital, spent the whole night there. And I remember waking up and seeing two of my friends that I was literally walking with, and they were there. The other one was like sleeping. So it freaked me out, because I thought he was dead. Like, Honestly, I thought he was dead, and the other one was in pain. I think that's when it really hit me that this is actually it was a serious accident. And then my grandmother came, and I was like terrified, but she was really concerned. She stayed up, and then the following morning I was sent home, which is now the morning of Mandela being out, and everywhere on radio, on television, that's all you see. Him walking out of jail with it's really great moment for the country, which I had like mixed feelings because I was like in extremely, like I was in pain. And so yeah, that's what happened on that day for me. It just became a significant day in a different way. Yeah.
Had you been writing and performing music by that age, and did it that kind of a moment in your life, did it kind of bolster you to want to keep trying?
I say this all the time. I think I was young to take it to heart. I was young. I was too young for it to affect me deeply. I think if it's something that happened now, I would have been so conscious, of so many things. I was too young and too ambitious at the time. I had started like DJing, like fooling around really. My cousin had a sound system. They used to do these 21st birthday parties and beauty pageants. And so I was part of his crew, like literally going to the gigs. And so I didn't stop, I would think about it though, like I wonder what's going to happen as I grow, because I can't really, I just thought, how is it going to work? How am I going to DJ with one hand growing up, but I was so driven. I thought we'll figure it out, we'll make it work, but what I did is I really spent time practicing. I just thought I need to be able to master this thing more than anyone else, so that one day if someone says to me, come, there's a gig, I must be ready. Yeah.
What kind of music were you playing at that time? Because the sounds of the townships and the villages were perhaps very different to the cities. So this is like the late 90s now. You're like a teenager, and there's sounds coming out of the townships that are very particular to that moment, that vibe. And I would like to play the first video, please, of a music video of a group, and this is from 1998. And hopefully afterwards you can tell us a bit about the sound in the group, because this was the sound of like the townships early on. So if we could have the first video, please. So you're going to have to help me with the pronunciation of that song title a little bit. Who was that?
The group was called TKZ. The song is called Dlala Mapantsula, meaning dance Mapantsula. Mapantsula is like Ispantsula is a kind of a dance. Right. So the people that do the dance are called Mapantsula. Those guys they were kind of like the new South Africa. Right. They were from private schools. They changed everything. They changed the music scene. They were very well spoken. They spoke good English. They were born in the townships but didn't really grow up in the townships because their parents could afford to take them to good schools. But they took the culture and modernized it. They became the biggest thing in the country at that time. That's the music that actually I was playing. But it was that and more. There were so many international songs around the same tempo that were coming out at the time. We didn't really have a name for it, back in the day when I started DJing, you would be that DJ who could play alone, the whole night, where it's that kind of music which was our dance music, and straight to like R&B and hip hop if you have it, you know. But you basically play everything that people want to listen to. You didn't specialize in, like today, I'm a house DJ, full stop. You know, it doesn't matter where I play, and a hot girl comes, say, please play Britney Spears. I'm like, I'm a house DJ, you know. Then you would play everything, you know, like from that. I think one of the funniest songs I remember is, that was so big in my country, so people will be dancing to that. Next thing you hear, boom, 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 boom. Then you hear Barry White saying, baby. You know, I used to find that so weird, and people would go nuts, you know, because that's exactly what the radio was playing. And so you would go from like a dance song to a Barry White in a club, you know. So
it sounds like a good club.
Yeah, if they played that, then you know you're at the right place, you know. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the tempo, because that, in like terms of aesthetic and the mood, is very much like a hip hop track. But it sounds extremely like house music, but a lot slower. Can you explain what is going on in that beat?
That was our sound. That was our version of hip hop music. Right. You know, Kwaito. That's what Kwaito is. Kwaito is like our movement. It became our genre that was created by South Africans, you know, and understood by South Africans. And most of the songs were like, that's a party song, you know. But some spoke about what was happening at the time, you know. It became our new kind of hip hop in a way, what Americans did with hip hop music. Kwaito was our own, and that's the tempo they chose. And it was never on a hip hop beat. It was more on a dance, but much slower, to a point where we used to take records that were 45 BPM and slow them down and play them on, 45 RPM and slow them down and play them on a 33 RPM, and, you know, just to get that slowness and that groove. And it became like the biggest thing. They used to make house music compilation called the Mid Tempos, and that's what we knew. We just knew house music as that very slow sounding. The minute it was fast, we didn't connect to it, you know. So for the longest time, our dance music was on that tempo, like 105. If it was fast, then it's 114, and that's it.
So 114 was too fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's too much.
Yeah. I remember like the first house music compilation that came out that became our classic, like our Bible. It was a compilation called Fresh House Flavor Volume 1. It was so fast. I remember hearing it and I thought, no. For the longest time, you know, but you play it over and over. And I think if you listen to it today, it was maybe like 120, 121, but it just sounded so weird. And everyone was like, no, this is music for white people, you know, like for the longest time. And eventually it just changed and became, wow, this is actually good. And the songs on that album, if you want to play a classic house song in South Africa, that's the album to play. And one of the songs is by a DJ from here, actually, Nick Holder, called Summer Days. It's in that album. And for us, that's if you want to play classic house music, that's where you go. We don't know anything beyond that, basically.
It's so interesting that I'd imagine imported compilations that were sold in South Africa, that was your idea of like house music outside of South Africa, and you had your own version of it through Kwaito and what would evolve out of the hip-hop scene. And this is really interesting because South Africa's so huge for house music, but they doesn't come straight from the lineage of Chicago house or Detroit techno or anything. It's very much its own story, which is fascinating.
Like, I think my approach after attending the Red Bull Music Academy changed because I was a DJ, and we had our own like collective, like a band called Shana, where I remember when I was submitting my questionnaire to the Red Bull Music Academy, I had sent them songs from the group, but being in a group, on the side I'm a DJ, so I wanna have an album, and obviously the obvious route is to make a compilation, But after attending the academy, then I thought, you know what, I actually want to make my own music. I just felt there was a space for original house music from South Africa, and I just wanted to break that chain and be able to reverse the cycle and be able to export the music instead of importing, because a lot of money was going outside the country, and it was an in thing. Everyone wanted to have a compilation album. They used to really fight over the hot singles, who's going to hear the song, who's going to license the song first, and whoever who has the hottest songs become the hottest DJ. So I sort of kind of like reversed the cycle in creating my own music, my album, which came out in 2005. And out of that album, I started licensing my music overseas, which was something that no one was doing. And understanding the culture internationally, producers, I don't know now, but at the time, would work on a song. Maybe in a year, they would release 1 or 2 singles only. And then, they stay in the circle. Depending how successful their single is, they will start doing shows, and and here I was from South Africa with an album, and then I would strip my album and license songs to different labels. So I would license the first song to one label for like 2-3 months and wait, and then give it to another one, and then wait, and then I remember at one point, I think I had like all of my songs like were the top 6 on Traxsource, and all of them became number 1, depending when I was releasing them, and it was kind of like freaking everyone out. Like, we do 1 song a year, and there's this new guy who has 6 new singles, and it's 6 of them on the top 10. My approach was different. I knew that I'm not from that world. I don't have the knowledge and the database the international labels have. So instead of me coming up and competing, it's better to partner with them. So I licensed all my music to all these different labels, and in turn they would introduce me to the world as one of their own. Really hype, and every single I release, I'm part of them. And then I started getting requests for gigs, depending where the label was from. I did anything between labels in London, Germany, and America, and in between, in Paris. And that's how I built my brand, basically, out of licensing the same South African music that, wasn't being licensed before.
I'd love to talk about your music a little bit more, and I'd like to warm it up with the second video, please. This is a live concert. And it's a person that you work very closely with. And I'd like people to get a sense of the importance of the music and the people that were being able to see it at the time. So if we could have the second video, please. Tell you off. Right, so you're growing up, you're becoming a teenager, you're DJing, you're playing Kwaito music, hip-hop, like imported house. Why go to a jazz record from the mid-70s for some of your first ideas of music?
I was sitting in my room and producing music. I think it was 2004. This is after I'd been to the Red Bull Music Academy and had met Hugh Masekela at the Music Academy for the first time. And I was working. I used to have this iMac computer with I had this broken headphone. I had to literally hold one ear like this when I was making music, and I was working on something else, and I saw this same particular video on TV, on late night television. And I stopped whatever I was doing and started a new project. While the song was playing on TV, I was trying to figure out the key of the song. While it was playing on TV, I got the key of the song. By the time it ended, I was done with it. And then I started working on that song in particular as a remix. And I didn't know how I was going to find Hugh Masekela to even start a conversation of remixing this song. I didn't even know if he was going to allow that to happen. But it captured me so much. And that song, by the way, is breaking down the same story we were just talking about. It talks about the train that picks up the mine workers. And the last line he said there before it was stop is, in Xhosa it says, Sidla inyula enkomponi, meaning we, inyula is a word they used for the kind of food, terrible food they were eating in the mines. You know, and he says that in the song, but the whole story is they're going to the mines. It's people from all these countries to go work for their kids. That's the old South Africa. That's how the system was. Your job as a man, if you a hardworking man, that's where you end up. You get on the train, you go to the mines, you live there, you leave your family behind. You see them once a year, you send money in between. And so that song is about that story we're just talking about. And it touched me then like the same way it just did now when it played. It's quite an emotional song. And so I did the remix before even speaking to him. The following weekend, I was playing the song as an instrumental and telling everyone who listened that this is going to be a remix for Hugh Masekela. And it didn't make sense because it was just an instrumental. And then I took it to this guy who ended up being like, he's my bigger brother. Now he's like my mentor. His name is Oskido. Oskido is one of the guys who got into the industry quite early. His story is he used to sell, in a way that everyone can understand, he used to sell hot dogs outside a club, a nightclub, and you know, when people come out the club and they're hungry, they would buy hot dogs from him. So when he was done, he would go into the club. And one day the DJ didn't pitch. And the guy from the club was like, the DJ can you play? Do you know how to play music? And he was like, yeah. And that's how we started being a DJ, literally. And from there, he built an empire. You know, started their own first record label, signed their first artists. They used to sell music from the car because no record company wanted to sign that music. Kwaito was like hip hop. It was kind of like not violent, but they didn't believe in it so much. You know, so they started selling it from their cars, and he literally was in the beginning of South African music industries. He knew everyone, you know, and I'd taken my album to him so that it could be licensed to his label. And I told him I have this song that I wish to feature Hugh, and so he spoke to him and it was approved. That's how it got on the album. Yeah.
I think we should listen to your remix. I think we should do that. Sounds good. Now, and it's interesting to think of how you turn a jazz record from the 70s into your own music along this kind of South African house flavour. So this is what we're going to do.
I'm nervous.
Are you nervous?
Yeah,
oh,
I'm going to make
nervous.
a disclaimer. So I produced this using, like I said, I had this small iMac computer. I produced the whole album using a mouse, literally. I'd write down the chords. I'd sing the bass line with my mouth and then literally write them down with the mouse. And I had no keyboard to play when I made this album. So if it doesn't sound so great, just remember that.
Okay, well, this is Stimela, and also Stimela means train. Yeah. quite literally, right? So like the emotional importance of this just being called Stimela, it's heavy, it's real. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, thank you.
Now
I think the speakers are quite good.
they're actually even louder out there. I was just making sure we don't blow everyone's ears off with the train sound. So you were saying that what I find so interesting about your music is that you draw from live instrumentation, like you're inspired by a figure like Hugh Masekela, playing like live jazz. You studied jazz as well, and you're making house music with very few instruments or even just like equipment for a while. So how exactly did you make that? Was that sampled directly from the original? Like, how were you working it out?
That's a very old song. So you saw in the video, Hugh Masekela was very young when he did that. So I literally had to use that recording.
The live recording?
Yeah,
right.
I had to use that recording, but I EQ'd it so much. You know, I didn't get the separates to do the remix, like separate vocals, or you know, I had to EQ what was there, and I tried capturing the emotion of the train on the drums as well. You know, to me that's how a train sounds. Like if you listen to the rhythm of the remix, it suggests the train movement. Basically, I wanted to make sure that he doesn't say no when he hears the song, you know, because before there was no official Hugh Masekela remix. You know, it's like Sade doesn't let anyone remix. But if I were to get an opportunity, I'd do like 10 different versions of one song so that she doesn't have to get a chance to say no. So it was one of those things where I was like, I have to get this thing right. I have to capture him. And he has no knowledge, or rather had no knowledge of what house music is. And I wanted him to just hear music, you know, and approve it, and it worked. Yeah.
It did actually work, didn't it? Because you ended up working together.
We worked together and on a different song, and was doing my album called Home-brewed, and one of my dreams now was to do a song with him, like an original song. And so I had been speaking to his manager for the longest time, and he said, okay, cool, confirmed. He's going to come to your house. I think it was a Tuesday, and said this on Monday morning, and I freaked out because I had nothing. And he said to me, he only has an hour and a half. They're giving him like a doctorate at some universities, honoring him, so he doesn't have time. And usually how I work is I'm quite fast, but an hour and a half is like a bit too short. So I thought we will hang out and I'll play something, and then he'll say no, yes, no. And now this guy says to me, he has an hour and a half. And I said to him, is he interested in writing a song? Perhaps. He says, no, he wants to come in, sing, and go. And so I had a day to really start this song, and I had no one to call to write the song. You know, I kind of like believe I am a songwriter, but not for Brayu, not for him. So I was stuck, and I decided, okay, it's fine. Let me just lock myself up and do something. So I did, and I literally stayed up the whole night. I called this guy who usually play piano on my songs, Johan, to come. And I played him the instrumental. I said to him, please play a solo. Let's just do this song and finish it before he gets here. And that's what we did. And when he got there, all he had to do was to just play a solo and sing the verse. And I played him the song, and he was like, what music is this? And I said, this is house music. And he laughed at me. Like, so he says, it's house, like a home, like a... I said, yeah. And jokingly he said, so if there's house, is there garage? And I was like,
well,
actually, you know, So we did the song, and Josh had said to me, listen, Bro Hugh is not interested in, the technical side, the ownership. He wants a fee, and obviously to him, this is just a guy who had remixed his songs, who I'm just doing like a quick thing. He wants his fee, he's going to sing what you say he must sing, play a solo and go. I said, cool. And then that's exactly what happened. He came in, I told him what I've written, sang it to him, he sang it. Even the chorus, I sort of like sung it myself as a guide, which I'm not a good singer. I just wanted it to be ready. And he recorded, he left, and it was just me and him in the studio. He left, and then like within 5 minutes, I get a call from Josh. Josh says, thank you, man. Thank you for keeping the time. But he was quite happy. And so let's talk about publishing. I said, but you said he's not interested. He says, yeah, no, he's changed his mind. And that's how I knew I have a good song. I was like, okay, cool. This house thing is a good house, a good home.
Wanted a piece of the house.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what we got here.
And obviously, because it's Hugh Masekela, I couldn't write a song about being in the club and turning up with some hot girls, So, because it's him, I wanted something quite meaningful and like a message he could pass. And so I wrote a song called "We Are One." I wish actually we had preloaded a music video, and that song became so significant in a way because it carries such a big message. And there's times where there was big fights in my country, xenophobia fights, and it has been used there a lot as a message, to say we are one, and stop the dividing, stop the fighting, and it has become such a significant song. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
I love this work that you've done with Hugh Masekela through his own music for remix and collaborating together, because it draws this lovely line of how you as a house music producer is also deeply invested in things like live performance, collaborating with vocalists and musicians, and this is something that has really evolved with South African house very deeply. Can you speak about that collaborative effort and how you work with live musicians who, like Hugh Masekela, has got no idea what house music is? How do you translate that kind of spirit?
I think it's one of my strongest things, and I've learned that from an early age. I think secretly I'm this great singer, in my dreams, I sing very well. And yeah, if it was for me, I'd sing in all my songs. So I find it very important to do songs with singers. I love collaborating with singers. So I'm always on the lookout for someone, whether new or known or unknown. I'm always looking for. I work more with texture, than names. And in all the music that I try to create, I'm always collaborating with different people. And it's something that I think I've grown to understand more. And working with Hugh Masekela was such an important thing. And doing a song called "We Are One" with him, where for the first time I sang on a record that I produced. But in the end, my son at the time, he was, I think, 11, sang as well, the same chorus, with his little voice saying, "We are one." And this song was licensed by Louis Vega. And when Louis Vega did the remix, because I explained to him the story, I said, there's 3 generations on this song. There's Hugh Masekela, there's myself, there's my son. So when Louis Vega did the remix, on the remix, he put his son on. and he put his wife on and his whole entire band on the remix as well. So it just became this much bigger story of it. It was a 3-generation story from South Africa to another 3-generation story in New York, and he had Josh Milan singing the chorus, Anane Vega singing the chorus, Luisito Quintero playing the drums. It just became something much more bigger, you know. But that's for me a dream. I love doing such. I believe I'm on the house music side, but I believe whilst I'm there, I can bring so much more, you know. So I try and strike the balance between making sure the songs remain house music, but also become musical at the same time. Yeah.
Actually, that might be a really good point to play our third video, please, because this is the ultimate kind of expression of that, and this is from 2012. And this is something that...
Oh, which one is that?
Oh, we're going to find out. If we could have the last video, please, and we can get set. There's a lot within that. It's fascinating. Can you tell us where that concert was, what it was for, and what role you played in it?
That concert was in Durban, my hometown. It was in 2012. We called it Africa Rising. Africa Rising is a project that I started with a good friend of mine, Glenn. Glenn is in music. Sorry, he's in film and TV production. And we just sat down one day and we were talking about how we can stage house music better, you know. And as a team, I've always had this dream of playing with an orchestra, you know. And he's the first person to say to me, we can do it, you know. So we started literally just planning it and started working on the music. So it's a 2-hour show. The whole show is that kind of an energy, literally. I'm bringing all the singers, or almost all the singers that I've worked with. They come on and perform the songs that we've collaborated on. And that song is called Someday, you know. And for me, from calling the show Africa Rising, you know, I believe music in my country can play a very big role in motivating the people and steering them onto the right direction. That is why we did that song with Zano called Someday. It's a very motivational song. So I'm trying as much as I can to quietly inspire, you know. While you dance, there must be substance in the music. Not that I'm forever going to be this preacher guy who says everything is possible and, you know, but every now and then my country still needs those messages, that encouraging kind of message on every album I do. I make sure I touch on that because I believe it's quite an important role to play in my country. Yeah.
So how does a kid that doesn't have a keyboard and a broken headphone and all that kind of thing, how does he end up working with an orchestra? As a house music producer, did you walk into an orchestra and they were like, what's this? Like,
I'm crazy.
Okay.
No, like literally, like the guys that work with me know, we hardly speak on the phone. There's a guy, his name is Amaru. He runs my office in South Africa, and we hardly make voice calls. We on WhatsApp. Anything he needs, anything I need, we always chat. But when he receives my call, he knows, oh shit, what now? You know, and especially after long trips. And then there's another one called Lionel who's in New York and who's also part of the teams. After long trips and when they receive a call from me, they sit down, you know, because I always have these ideas and It could be like I was working on an album recently, and so we're busy, almost done with it, talking about sleeve designs, and I call, and I'm like, "Are you ready to talk?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I want to do a movie." It's like, okay, I'm listening, but that's me. Like I'm always looking for ways to grow, and I broke it down to him. I said, like my latest album, Pieces of Me, when I listen to it, some of the songs sound like they could be in a movie. So what I want to do is I want to do a 12 minutes movie where I put my own songs on the movie, in a way it's showcasing the music, He's like, "Okay, who's going to write the movie?" I said, "I have it written. On the flight, I wrote the whole story. It's ready. Who's going to act on the movie?" I said, it's going to be an animation movie. So your job is to find an animator and send them my story, and that's it. I'm almost done with the music. The movie's done. There's a Red Bull Music Film Festival coming in Johannesburg, end of October. We're gonna show that movie. So I'm like that. I'm never comfortable. I'm always looking for ways to close the gap. Find a different approach to things, and I want to take house music to a level that has never been before, with different approach. And I've said this. I've been saying this, and I want to be that guy who makes a song with Beyonce, but it remains house music. Without changing who I am and what I've been doing. That's my ultimate goal. And back in the day, in 2003, I did an interview while I was a participant in Cape Town, and they were interviewing us. And so this lady was like, "So where do you see yourself in 3 years?" And I said to her, 3 years is too close. Just say 5 years. In 5 years, I'm going to be one of the most important producers of this country. And then I choked after saying that, and I thought, why would you say that? But that was the truth. It came out because I'm that guy who I'm never comfortable, with the stuff that I'm doing. I always want to get better. I'm always willing to learn. And funny enough, before I took this trip, I found the notebook that they gave us in Cape Town, the Red Bull Music Academy notebook. And what I wrote on the cover is that I am here to learn. That's the first thing I wrote before I started attending all the classes. And that's me. I never walk in a room knowing. I'm always walking in the room to learn. And so I'm forever learning, and I'm forever pushing the envelope, So that's where that orchestra idea comes from. And we've done more crazier things. We've done a show where we pre-recorded the orchestra, and then we did a show where the orchestra was only on the screens, and I was playing. The conductor was conducting the screens, and this is a house music show. We're not just about a club. We are about how do we repackage this thing and make it look amazing at the same time, keeping the culture. Yeah.
I think always learning and keeping the culture seems to encapsulate what you do as an artist. And I think I'd like to thank you at this point before we go to questions. So thank you very much, Black Coffee, for speaking to us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do any participants have a question for their fellow former participant? Cool. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon.
What's up, man?
I actually have a question about another musician. I think his name is Petit Noir. Is he from? I wanted to know if he was from Cape Town and what you thought about his music.
I've seen the name. I'm not really familiar with his music, but I've seen he's been doing like a lot of international shows But I'm not really familiar with this music.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
Anyone else? Out the back there?
Hello, how are you?
Cool, man. How's
What do you think it is about house music that struck such a chord with South African culture and people? Like, I find it really interesting, like how sometimes music from very far away, like, has a weird kind of spiritual connection with people. I don't know. I'm not going in that direction, but that's the question. But what do you think was it about house music?
I've actually tried, breaking that down, and it really confuses me. There's so much connection with, especially like the soulful house music in my country. And I think South Africa is that place where, before it was strong, soulful house music was quite strong on radio and on television. We just grew up with that culture, whether the song was slow or fast, but we liked songs. And when the soulful house music came with the vocals and house music that is so arranged and very musical, we connected so much to it. And we as producers were now also inspired by that culture, and not so much minimal techno and anything else in between. There is a little bit of that, but what's more is like your house music. House music is part of our life in South Africa. It's on radio, it's on television, like literally every day. It's not a night thing, it's not a weekend thing. It's everywhere. I was reading last week, we have this 4-year-old DJ. He won a competition last year, TV competition. He was 3.
Was that X Factor? Or?
It's a show similar to that. Yeah. And he won at 3. He couldn't even speak. And
damn, I wish I had that video.
Now he's 4. He's driven by Mini Cooper. I see him on billboards advertising cereal for kids. And I was reading an interview. His father says he's going to break a record now. He wants him to play for an hour because he's a kid, so he loses concentration. Like on the 20th minute, he's like, okay, I'm done. So he wants him to break a record and become like the youngest DJ to play a set. So, and I was reading, he was telling him, you're gonna need to play for an hour now. And he freaked out. He's like, oh, an hour, that is so long. But that's how much house music there is in that country. Like it is not a club thing or a DJ thing. It is part of our life at this point. We've connected with music to that level. Yeah.
Anyone else? Hi.
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 Now that you have international recognition of sort, do you think you have a big enough voice to bring change to the system in which you mentioned all the horrors happening when you were younger? Do you think you have that voice to bring change, or what have you done over the years?
I definitely do, but for me, it's not more of a voice than an approach. About 2 months ago, I won an award in LA, a BET award, and I was the first to win that award in my country, and the president mentioned me on TV. Big deal. And I got to the country. They hosted a dinner for me, like a gala dinner, the Minister of Arts and Culture. And it's something I've always wanted, because I've always wanted to talk to that office. believe I have so many ideas of how to change a lot of things. And one of the things that I've been working on is an app which was approved actually last week by the Apple Store. I've created an app called Gongbox, and this app is it's a music platform for African music. We as a country don't have a platform for music at all. So this app will host everything that's ever been released in that country. Like, imagine this interview now, you wouldn't have to go search on YouTube and different places. You'd go to one place and find all the kind of music that you want. But for me, it goes further than that, because it's sort of like, it recreates so many jobs. It creates a structure for the industry as a whole. You know, there's so many kids who've been inspired by what we do, and they go to school and study engineering, but then they have engineering certificates, but then there's no work. So with the app in place, then you now have created a job for guys who can now, before the music gets on the app, they can have a job to make sure the songs are mixed well, the songs are mastered well, and you know, there's so many things that it will do to change and create jobs, but to change the whole way of how our entertainment business is going. Because some kids are in high school, but they make amazing music, but you don't want them to leave school. So we've created a section in the app where it's unsigned artists. So if you think you're great and you are in school, cool, put your song on. Your song will tell you how great you are, but put your song on and go back to school. You know, so there's so many ways. There's so many ideas that I shared with him, including opening up a music school, because I feel like I went to study music, but I had to go study jazz, which I wasn't really interested in. All I wanted to do was to learn to produce music, you know. So now I'm working on opening a college where, say you are a singer and you walk into this college as a singer, you get trained on how to be a singer. And when you do your final recital, your final performance, that's actually your first single you are performing, you know. And when you're performing that, we live streaming it because it's available on the app as a release, you know, with a music video coming out. Basically create a career, not just a profession, not just a certificate, you know. So there's so many different ideas that I have sort of like structured, you know, to change the music industry. So that's the way. I wouldn't say I want to go to Parliament and sit down with the president and tell him how to do things, you know. For me, it's more of an approach than being a voice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, well, great. Well,
It's just one word. No, like for me, I want you guys to understand how important being in this room is. Like, it literally changed my life. That's why I was on my phone constantly, because I'm literally writing down an Instagram post about being here and
just getting it all out in the moment.
Yeah, so I was trying to write it in between while I was still feeling it, you know. For me, it just changed everything. Being from South Africa, we were always divided, you know, and attending this, the academy for me changed a lot of things. It changed the way I wanted my music to be heard, you know, the approach, because I made friends at the academy, and I thought, so if I send my friend in New Zealand a song, would they, in Xhosa, would they understand it, you know? And it changed that, because I knew that, okay, I need to change the approach, the choice of sounds, the language. It went as far as wanted to showcase my country other than just being a producer. You know, it changed literally everything, and I want you guys to understand how important it is, and you must grab this moment and run with it.
Thank you, Black Coffee.
Thank you.